The air on the top floor of the Jungkook building always felt cold, not because of excessive air conditioning, but because of the dominant aura radiating from the man seated behind a large mahogany desk, a figure too calm to be considered an ordinary human. Park Yin had been working for 2 years as the personal secretary of Jungkook, CEO of Jungkook, the most influential real estate company in South Korea. To the public, Jungkook was a brilliant young businessman who had spearheaded massive international expansion. But behind the scenes, a darker world knew that name as something else, a mafia boss. Jungkook was merely the legal surface of a hidden business empire veiled behind property investments and large-scale projects. The underworld recognized him as the head of the most powerful syndicate in East Asia. Weapons trade, illegal dealings, even revenge cloaked in legal camouflage, all protected under a legitimate business structure. Rumor had it that very few people truly knew who Jungkook was, and Yin accidentally was one of them. Yet even with that knowledge, she never left, never reported him, never asked, never ran. And perhaps that was why she was still here. Yin's fingers danced across the keyboard, compiling the weekly report requested just hours earlier. Her eyes occasionally flicked to the tightly shut door of Jungkook's office. That door felt like a gateway to another dimension, a place where major decisions were made in silence, a place where someone could vanish from existence with just a sentence. Yet somehow, Yin didn't just survive in the midst of that danger. She fell in love. This love was her little secret. For 2 years, she had observed the man from close enough to hear his breath, yet far too distant to ever touch his heart. Jungkook rarely spoke. His gaze was sharp as an eagle's, and his voice always flat, devoid of emotion, impenetrable. But Yin knew, he wasn't entirely made of stone. In rare moments, those eyes lingered on her just a little longer, and when his baritone voice called her name, even just to give orders, her heart would race uncontrollably. "Come in," that deep, unhurried voice echoed through the intercom. Yin immediately stood up. She adjusted her white blouse, took a slow breath, and opened the door to Jungkook's office. Her steps were steady, though her entire body remained acutely aware of the man she was about to face. The room was spacious and immaculate. Glass walls revealed the glittering Seoul nightscape. Jungkook stood with his back to the desk, hands tucked into the pockets of his black suit pants, facing the window. Not a single light was on except for the desk lamp and the glow of the city beyond. The aura he exuded was too strong to commanding, and never neutral. "The report?" he asked without turning around. Yin quickly held out a folder. "I've arranged everything as instructed, sir. There's an update on the Bizin project land estimates and..." "Leave it on the desk." The order cut her off. She bowed slightly and placed the folder on the large mahogany desk. Just as she was about to step back, Jungkook suddenly turned around. Their eyes met, just for a moment, but long enough for Yin to forget to breathe. His gaze wasn't angry, nor was it kind. It was just sharp, like it peeled back the layers of her mind, stripping away all the defenses she had tried to build. "You're still here at this hour because of work, or for another reason?" he asked quietly. Yin lowered her gaze. "I just finished the report, sir." Jungkook stepped forward, slowly and almost soundlessly. He stopped just a few paces from where Yin stood. "You know everyone is afraid of me, Yin?" he murmured. His voice was heavy, cold, but not intimidating, more like a lonely confession. Yin nodded slightly. She knew it was true. Even the senior executives were nervous when summoned into this office. "But you're not," he continued. There was a pause. "The only one who's never wavered in front of me these past 2 years." Yin bit her lip, still looking down. She didn't know what to say, because if she spoke, her secret might spill uncontrollably. Jungkook studied her face for a moment, then turned away again. "Go home," he said at last. "That's enough for today." And just like that, the coldness returned, but Yin knew that kind of cold was never truly empty. It was a wall Jungkook had built deliberately, so no one could enter. And Yin, she had long been standing in front of that wall, knocking, waiting, hoping that someday, a small crack might open just for her. The next day, Yin entered Jungkook's office after being summoned. She now stood near his desk. "What else is on my schedule this afternoon?" he asked, his voice flat. "Nothing, sir. After the meeting with Mr. Kim at 3 o'clock, your schedule is cleared," Yin replied, holding her planner. Jungkook nodded. His eyes swept over a report on the desk and he pointed to it. "Finish that report today. I want to review it tomorrow morning." "Of course, sir." She turned and walked back to her desk, folder in hand. She exhaled softly, once again feeling the unbridgeable distance between them. She loved him, while to him, Yin was merely a cog in the machine that kept his empire running. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months. Yin's unspoken love grew deeper, more painful in its loneliness. She kept a candid photo of Jungkook on her phone, secretly taken while her boss was focused on reading a document. She saved Jungkook's contact under a secret name on her phone, something only she and her phone would ever know. A sweet little foolishness for her aching heart. That name was Honey. That night, Yin was working overtime, finishing the report Jungkook had requested. By the time she left the Jungkook building, the streets were slick with rain that had just stopped falling. Normally, she would take a taxi home, but tonight, she wanted to walk a little, enjoying the fresh night air after the rain. Before she knew it, she had wandered quite a distance from the office building. Her mind was still lost in thoughts of Jungkook, his rare smile, and the way his hair fell over his forehead when he was deep in thought. Suddenly, blinding headlights flashed from around the corner. Tires screeched. A loud crash followed. Yin's world spun, pain slammed into her body, and then, darkness took her consciousness. The wail of ambulance and police sirens pierced the night at the scene of the crash. Yin was one of the victims in a minor multi-car accident. Paramedics moved swiftly, lifting her unconscious body and rushing her to the nearest hospital. In the emergency room, doctors and nurses moved swiftly, tending to the victims. They tried to identify Yin through the contents of her bag, but all they found was a phone, no wallet, no ID cards. The phone was locked, with no emergency contacts or clues to any close relatives. Yin was still unconscious. A police officer assigned to record the victims took Yin's phone, hoping to find something useful. But the screen remained locked. No code, no emergency contact. The officer muttered in frustration. How are we supposed to reach her family? As uncertainty clouded the room, the phone suddenly rang in the officer's hand. The screen lit up with a caller ID. Honey. The officer exchanged glances with the nurse beside him. Honey, the nurse murmured, slightly surprised. Maybe her husband or boyfriend. The officer nodded. This was their best hope of contacting someone close to the unconscious woman. Carefully, he answered the call. Hello? The officer greeted, his voice a bit hesitant. On the other end of the line came a deep baritone voice, one that carried undeniable authority. A voice Yin surely knew well. Yes, what's going on? Why are you answering Yin's phone? The voice asked, sounding impatient and slightly suspicious. The officer explained, Good evening, Mr. Honey. We're calling from the police department. This phone belongs to a woman who is currently unconscious. She was just involved in an accident and has been brought to Central Hospital. A heavy pause followed. The silence on the line felt dense. The officer began to wonder if the call had disconnected. Then, the voice returned, sharper now, urgent. Central Hospital? What's her condition? What happened? The officer briefly explained the accident and Yin's unresponsive state. He added, We've tried reaching her relatives, but the phone is locked. When your call came in under the name Honey, we assumed you were her husband or boyfriend. There were no ID cards in her bag. Another pause. This time, the officer was sure he heard a harsh, shaky breath on the other end. Understood, the voice finally said, now cold and controlled, hiding whatever emotion had just been there. I'll be there immediately. Don't move her anywhere until I arrive. Yes, Mr. Honey, the officer replied. My name is Jungkook, the voice corrected, firm and unmistakable. That woman is Park Yin. She's my wife. The officer froze in disbelief. Jungkook, the head of Jungkook, and he was this woman's husband. Yes, Mr. Jeon, we'll be waiting. They all knew who the most powerful man in Korea's real estate world was, but they also knew how private Jungkook's personal life had always been. The call ended. The officer and nurse looked at each other, stunned. Jungkook, and Honey, the nurse whispered. Wow. Less than 30 minutes later, the chaos in the emergency room seemed to settle as one man walked in. Jungkook entered the air with an aura that made everyone instinctively step aside. Dressed in a flawless black suit despite the late hour, his dark eyes scanned the room until they landed on Yin, lying unconscious on a hospital bed. A doctor and nurse quickly approached him, clearly nervous. Mr. Jeon, are you Mrs. Park Yin's husband? The doctor asked cautiously. Jungkook nodded without expression. Yes, how is she? The doctor explained Yin's injuries, a mild concussion, a fractured arm, and several bruises. She was stable, but still unconscious. I want her transferred to a VIP room immediately. His voice was low but firm. Assign the best doctors and nurses to her. Whatever the cost, I'll take care of it. I'm staying here tonight." The doctor and nurse nodded quickly, both impressed and slightly intimidated by Jungkook's commanding presence. None of them questioned his status as husband, especially after the police officer had confirmed that he was indeed the patient's spouse. Jungkook sat beside Yin's bed in the VIP room. He watched her sleeping, her pale face unmoving. A bandage wrapped around her forehead, and her left arm was in a cast. A slight furrow creased her brow, something he'd never seen while she worked. For the first time, he wasn't looking at Yin as his calm, efficient secretary, but as a fragile, wounded woman. And this woman, Yin, his quiet secretary, had saved his contact in her phone as honey. That thought kept swirling in his mind. For hours, Jungkook sat there in silence, just watching. Occasionally, a nurse came in to check on Yin. He, Jungkook, sat beside the bed of his injured wife. The story had already taken shape, and strangely, Jungkook didn't feel the need to correct it. Instead, a strange sense of possession stirred inside him. A few hours later, when Yin finally regained consciousness, the first thing she saw was a white ceiling, not the one in her room. Pain throbbed in her head and left arm. She tried to move, but the pain stopped her. "Don't move too much," a deep, familiar voice spoke. Yin turned her head slowly, and her heart nearly stopped. Jungkook was sitting beside her bed, his dark eyes staring straight at her. "Mr. Jian?" Yin whispered, confused. What's going on? Where am I?" "You're in the hospital," Jungkook replied calmly. "You were in an accident." "Accident?" A vague memory of blinding headlights flashed in her mind. "Then, why are you here?" Jungkook let out a soft sigh, a rare gesture from him. He leaned back on his chair, arms crossed over his chest. "That's an interesting story." Yin waited for him to speak, her heart pounding from Jungkook's unexpected presence. She was truly, deeply curious this time. "When you were brought here, you were unconscious," Jungkook began. "The hospital staff and the police couldn't contact any family. Your phone was locked, and apparently, there was no wallet or ID in your bag, just the phone." Yin thought for a second. I must have left my wallet in my desk drawer. And my phone." She suddenly stopped, her face flushing red. Of course, her phone held her biggest secret. But then, Jungkook continued, eyes narrowing slightly, whether in amusement or something else. "Your phone rang, and the name that appeared was..." He paused for a moment, as if the word was hard to say. "Honey." Yin gasped, her face instantly burning. No way. Her secret? Exposed? In this situation? "The police officer who had your phone assumed Honey was your partner, either your boyfriend or your husband," Jungkook said, his voice flat, though Yin could detect a certain undertone in it. "They answered the call and informed me about your accident." Yin stared at him, her eyes wide with embarrassment and dread. "So, Jungkook knew? He knew about that ridiculous name? He knew that she had saved his number under that name?" "They asked who I was," Jungkook continued, ignoring Yin's expression. "And since they already assumed I was your honey, and I was being asked to take responsibility for you here, I told them I was your husband." "What?" Yin shocked, trying to sit up, but the pain stopped her. "Husband? But we're not." "I know." Jungkook cut her off. "We're not, at least, not yet." Yin stared at him, completely confused. "Not yet? What did he mean, not yet?" She glared at him. She knew she was already crazy for saving his name as honey, but she never imagined Jungkook could be even crazier. Claiming to be her husband? What was that supposed to mean? "The police and hospital staff now believe we're a married couple," Jungkook said, his tone sounding almost satisfied. "They saw the name in your phone. They saw me come in and take care of everything. It would be very complicated to explain and correct this misunderstanding now, especially after I already claimed to be your husband." "But, Mr. Jian, you didn't have to say that. Why didn't you just explain the truth to them?" Yin asked weakly. Jungkook looked at her intently. His usually cold gaze held a different intensity now. "Why didn't I explain?" he murmured, more to himself. He paused for a moment, then looked back at her. "I don't know. Maybe because it felt right." What? This was completely insane. Yin felt her head hurt even more. It felt right? What was that supposed to mean? What part of this fake status felt right? "All the hospital documents, all the information given to the police, all list me as your husband," Jungkook said. "And I've handled all the bills, signed all the consents." Walking away from this situation now would raise too many questions and create unnecessary complications. Complications I don't need. He paused again, and this time, there was an unexpected softness in his voice, "especially when you're hurt like this." So what are we going to do?" Yin asked. her voice trembling. Her mind was completely blank now. Jungkook gently held her uninjured hand. The touch was soft, but his fingers felt strong and oddly familiar. "We'll go along with it," he replied, his voice low and serious. "We'll let them believe we're a couple. I'll take you home after you recover. To my mansion." To your mansion?" Yin was even more shocked. "Yes, you need proper care. I can't let you be alone. And remember, to the outside world now, I'm the honey who called, your husband who's taking care of everything." He gave a small smile, a rare one that made Yin feel breathless. "You started this, Yin." Yin looked down, her face burning red, cheeks hot. She honestly wanted to disappear or bury herself alive. But it was true. She was the one who had saved his number under that ridiculous name. A stupid decision that has now led her into the most bizarre, impossible situation. I don't know what to say, Mr. Jian," Yin mumbled, her mind completely frozen. "You don't need to say anything," Jungkook said gently, softly brushing the back of her hand. "Just rest. I'll take care of everything." Over the next few days, Jungkook truly stayed at the hospital, staying by Yin's side. He didn't go to the office at all. Instead, he had his most trusted people handle business affairs and even had some of his work brought into Yin's hospital room. He spoke with the doctors himself, making sure Yin received the best care possible. Every interaction between them felt strange, a mix of awkwardness due to the lie they were living, and the growing intimacy from Jungkook's constant attention. Yin began to see a side of Jungkook she had never seen before, a side that was patient in his own way, attentive, and protective. "You need to eat more, Yin," Jungkook said one afternoon, placing a plate of fruit on her table. I'm not really hungry, Mr. Jian," Yin replied softly. "Eat," Jungkook said gently, without his usual commanding tone. "You need energy to recover." He sat in his favorite chair, opened his laptop, and began working. Yin looked at him. Sunlight from the window illuminated the sharp lines of his face. How was this happening? How was this cold, mafia-like boss sitting beside her hospital bed, playing the role of her husband? "Mr. Jian," Yin called out quietly. Jungkook looked up. Why are you really playing this role?" Yin finally dared to ask. "You could have just told the police I was your secretary and that they misunderstood." Jungkook closed his laptop. His eyes met hers again, that intensity returning. "And let them go looking for some random relative of yours," he said, his voice a little sharp. "Leave you alone here? Maybe even send you to a social shelter if no one could be reached?" No, you've lived alone all this time, and I remember you once said your parents passed away when you were in high school." "But there's no but, Yin," he cut her off. "This situation happened, and I chose to handle it this way." He stood up, walked toward the window, and stared outside. 2 years, you've been the person closest to me professionally. You know everything about my schedule, who to contact, how everything operates. He turned to face her. "You are the only woman I can trust to be this close to me." Yin was stunned. It was the most personal thing she had ever heard from Jungkook. "And when you were in danger, hurt, somehow, I just couldn't not care about you," Jungkook said, his voice slightly uncertain, words he wasn't used to using. "And the idea of me being your honey, I guess it didn't sound so bad." Yin's heart pounded wildly in her chest. Did she really just hear that? Was he being serious? When Yin was well enough to be discharged, Jungkook truly brought her to his mansion. He gave her a comfortable guest room and made sure she had everything she needed. During the day, he would go to the office, leaving Yin in the care of a nurse he had hired to look after her. She was also often accompanied by the maids. At night, Jungkook and Yin would have dinner together. They talked about ordinary things. Slowly, the distance between them began to fade. Yin's laughter, something rarely heard at the office, began to come more often. Jungkook himself started to smile more around Yin, genuine smiles that made her melt inside. As they grew closer, Yin finally learned that Jungkook's parents had also passed away. Only then did she realize Jungkook was just as lonely as she was. One night, after dinner, they sat on the sofa in the living room. A comfortable silence wrapped around them. Yin was holding the cast on her arm. "Does it still hurt?" Jungkook asked softly. "A little," Yin replied. Jungkook moved closer. He held her arm gently above the cast. His warm, strong fingers brushed lightly against her skin. "You're very brave, Yin," he murmured. "After that accident, you didn't complain at all." I'm just grateful to be alive, Mr. Jian," Yin said shyly, embarrassed by his praise. "Jungkook," he corrected, his eyes fixed on Yin. "Call me Jungkook, or Honey, like the name you saved in your phone." Yin swallowed hard, her heart pounding and her embarrassment growing. "Jungkook, She tried the name. It felt strange, but it also felt right. This husband and wife status, Jungkook began, his voice low. At first, it was just to make things easier, to avoid complications. But the more I think about it, the more I feel like this isn't just a fake status. Yin held her breath. I know the reason why you saved my name as Honey, Jungkook whispered, his eyes locking with hers. I know what that means. Maybe I've been pretending not to know all this time. Yin's face burned. I'm sorry, Jungkook. It was stupid. I know you're my boss, and I shouldn't have. It's not stupid, he interrupted, his voice a little husky. Not at all. He leaned in slightly. The truth is, I've been thinking, what if I had someone by my side? Someone I could truly trust. He took a breath. And that woman has been right in front of me all this time. Yin stayed silent, her heart pounding louder. Yin, he murmured, we're already married, aren't we? Yin let out a soft laugh, one that trembled slightly. To the hospital staff, yes. No, Jungkook said, pulling back just enough to look her in the eyes. Not just to them. I want this to be real. I want you to be my wife, truly. Not because of that accident. Not because of a contact name. But because I want it. Jungkook. I know my world is complicated. Dangerous, he said, his tone sharpening again. But I'll protect you. You won't be involved in that side of my life. You'll still be my Yin, my efficient secretary by day, and my wife by night. My wife, truly mine. There was a hint of possessiveness in his voice, one that, strangely, made Yin feel safe. Yin smiled, tears pooling in her eyes. I love you, Jungkook. A rare smile broke across Jungkook's face, lighting up his whole expression. I know, he whispered, and I think I love you too. I only realized it when I saw you lying in that hospital bed. My heart shattered, and I knew I was truly afraid of losing you. And after that, Jungkook slowly leaned in. His breathing was calm, but his eyes held a storm of emotions that couldn't be hidden. His gaze dropped to Yin's lips. He paused for a moment, giving Yin space to pull away if she didn't want it. But Yin didn't back away. Instead, she slowly closed her eyes, a silent gesture that said it all. Jungkook didn't need any further encouragement. With a gentle, careful motion, his lips touched hers. The kiss was light at first, full of caution, as if he were touching something fragile. Yin kissed him back, just as softly, just as sincerely. There was no urgency, no burning lust, only feelings long buried, finally finding a way to speak the truth. Their lips met and spoke the words left unsaid for weeks. About fear, about loneliness, about a love that had come from the most unexpected place. He cupped her face with one hand, his thumb gently brushing her warm cheek. Yin's heart pounded wildly, but she didn't want the moment to end. The world around them disappeared. There were only the two of them, sitting on the warm living room sofa, in the stillness of a night that embraced them. When they finally pulled apart, their lips were still incredibly close. Jungkook rested his forehead against Yin's. He closed his eyes for a moment, as if trying to absorb every lingering feeling. I'll ask you once more, Park Yin, will you be my wife? He asked again, needing to be sure. Yin blushed and nodded, and that was all Jungkook needed. He smiled gently. All right, then we'll get married as soon as your hand is healed. 2 weeks later, Yin returned to the office. Her left arm was still in a cast, but the spark in her eyes had come back. A small smile played on her lips, one she couldn't hide, even as she tried to remain professional. Jungkook had actually objected to her returning to work so soon. He had prepared everything at the mansion so Yin could rest fully, but she kept begging, insisting she wanted to go back to the office, complaining she was bored to death being surrounded only by books, music, and the garden. I want to feel useful again, Yin had said back then, and Jungkook couldn't argue any further. He eventually gave in with one condition: Yin must not overexert herself. At the office, Jungkook remained the same CEO, serious in meetings, demanding with work. But there were little things no one else noticed. Like when he quietly placed a bottle of water on Yin's desk, or whispered softly when passing by her, "Let me know if you get tired." Sometimes when no one was around, his hand would gently ruffle her hair. Their relationship was still a secret, but no longer something they denied to themselves. And finally, just as Yin's arm had completely healed, the promise was fulfilled. In a simple yet warm ceremony, they were married. It was attended only by Jungkook's trusted circle, people he personally allowed to witness the moment. Yin and Jungkook began a new life, not just as CEO and employee, but as husband and wife. Loving each other, supporting each other, growing together.